What is going on, guys? DragonTamerBlayde here, back from our Elder Scrolls Legends, and we're going to do something a little bit different today that I've never quite done before on the channel. We're going to go over some of my favorite custom cards that I've seen created for Elder Scrolls Legends. If you didn't already know, they actually have a subreddit for it. It is, let me double check I'm getting the right address. It is titled Custom Legends, so reddit.com/r/custom legends. You'll see people posting their custom legends cards there. There's actually a fair amount of them, more than I was ready for when I kind of went on to that subreddit. So kind of the way I'm going to go over this, and I'm sure you guys have seen this if you follow any other card games. I know I'm personally a fan of watching Crip go through his for Hearthstone, but I kind of wanted to go over them myself for some Legends cards. And there's going to be no typical grading scale of how I select cards to go over. I may look at some that I just like the design of, or a unique mechanic, or an unexplored kind of design space. It can make the video for any number of reasons, so don't think that I think, alright, this card is balanced and it should be printed. Some of these cards might be OP, I don't know. I just selected cards that I thought were cool, or interesting, or any combination, and enter them into this video. And there's also going to be a full set that we'll go over for an honorable mention at the end of the video, but we'll get to that there. We're going to go over some cards first. And if you have any your own personal favorite custom Legends cards that either you've made or you've seen that you also like, that you want me to kind of take a look at and maybe make it into one of these videos in the future, you could shoot me a message on either in-game, on the subreddit, however, shoot me a message and we'll take a look. So the first card we're actually going to go over is Fighters Guild Warder. If I look off to the left, I have the cards on here for reference. They'll be in the video. You guys will see them normally on screen. But it's 4 costs, 3/4 agility creature with guard. And the effect Shackle creature at the end of your turn, deal 1 damage to all shackled enemy creatures. So this has synergy. Obviously the first thing I thought of was Shackle Assassin. Dress Tormentor is one of my favorite cards in the game. Same stat line. It's actually kind of a combination of the Renegade and the Tormentor. But obviously this one is in agility, so it'd have to be Shackle Assassin if you wanted to use these cards together. But it blends. Obviously they both have the same 4 cost. Takes a stat line from the Tormentor, the guard from the Renegade, and obviously both of these cards care about Shackle, as does the Fighters Guild Warder. So he actually shackles a creature, which obviously would trigger your Dress Tormentor. And the other cool thing is it offers a ping effect, which can be handy, and also Shackle Assassin. One of the biggest things, besides trying to just purely control the game with Shackle, I think it would have more benefits if it had either when you shackle a creature, silence it first, then shackle it. Just more kind of interaction using the shackle mechanic besides just kind of slowing down the game and not letting creatures attack. So you have the Tormentor that deals 3 damage to all creatures that get shackled. But if you either don't have the Tormentor or all 3 of your Tormentors get removed, that's about it as far as interacting with the other creatures that you're shackling. So I like the idea of being able to ping shackled creatures. Kind of gives you more options to continuously remove these creatures, maybe wear some stuff down. If you're playing aggro and you Winter's Grasp and you don't have your Dress Tormentor, you can still wipe the board with Fighters Guild Warder. I think it's pretty cool. Interesting card. I don't think it's super overpowered. Maybe it doesn't need to have guard. I don't know. Like I said, I don't want to touch too much on balance unless there's small changes I would make, but I think the card is relatively balanced as it is. Maybe not have it shackle its own creature by itself. I have no clue, but I like the card a lot. I think it's pretty cool, and I think Shackle Assassin could use something like that. Next card we're going to take a look at is Maven Blackbriar. I know there's a similar card in Hearthstone. I think it's Tradeprink's Gallywix. Again, it's another agility card. It's a 2 cost 1/4, so maybe a little bit too good for its cost, especially for its effect. But not too far out of the realm of possibility, especially being a unique legendary. The effect of this card is whenever your opponent plays an action other than a completed contract, you put a copy of it into your hand and you give them a completed contract. So let's say turn 2, you play Maven Blackbriar, your opponent hits a Firebolt, you gain a copy of Firebolt, they get a completed contract. I like it because it makes your opponent obviously think before using actions, and even if Maven Blackbriar gets executed, you gain a copy of Execute, and your opponent still gets the benefit of getting a completed contract. It just kind of adds that extra layer of complexity into whether or not they actually want to use that action or not. And I think any kind of card or combination of cards or situations that creates these kind of spots where you have to really decide how beneficial is it for me to use this action or to take this thing off the board. It also kind of turns a 2-cost 1/4, which normally isn't anything to worry about. You could leave that thing on the board. It turns it into kind of a priority. If you're a deck that cares about actions, you're going to have to, instead of maybe removing, let's say you're running this in an Archer deck or something like that, maybe instead of Lightning Bolting the Mighty Ally right away, which might still be the right move, but you also might have to think about, maybe, do I Lightning Bolt Maven Blackbriar first and then deal with the Mighty Ally, or something to that effect. Obviously, probably in that scenario, it's still probably Lightning Bolt the Mighty Ally, but it at least adds a layer of thought to your plays, and it also doesn't completely shut your opponent out. They're still receiving completed contracts, which gives them potential to continuously counterplay. So it's kind of a mutually beneficial card, and it's a really interesting card. I think this one was pretty well done. It's probably one of my favorites. Next card I wanted to look at is Avenging Champion. It's a 5-cost 5/3 Nord with Breakthrough. Summon effect, gain +2/+0 for each one of your own destroyed runes. Now, this is the one card that I think I would maybe tweak a little bit. I don't think the card is broken in its current sense. I just think the way these Nords interact with runes, and I think it's mostly in yellow. Yeah. So I guess East March Crusader doesn't truly follow this. But when I saw this card, I kind of thought of Morthal Executioner in reverse. So I was kind of not hoping, but I was expecting that maybe the effect would trigger when one of your runes is broken, instead of on summon looking at all of your runes that are broken. Especially with a 5/3 stat line, it's a little bit understated. But even 2 runes being broken, you're getting a 5-cost 9/3, which is pretty darn good. I mean, it may be fine in its current state, but considering it has Breakthrough and already has pretty high attack, I was kind of thinking for, kind of make it fully balanced, I would kind of maybe want it to be when your rune is broken instead of on summon. But in general, I thought it was a really cool card. It was kind of a cool touch on the already Nord themes that exist in the game, kind of just reversing them a little bit. So yeah, I thought it was pretty cool, pretty unique. I'd like to see them do something like this, or maybe even a Morthal Executioner in reverse for attack, maybe 2 health or something like that, or even a 2/4 with guard that gains more and more health as runes were broken, kind of giving you more defensive options. I don't know, but I like the interaction and kind of gameplay decisions that get set up when you're deciding whether you want to break your opponent's runes or not. Because a lot of times, to err on the side of caution, you just don't do it. But you have these cards that reward you for breaking runes, and I think it really makes the decision more interesting and more fun. So that's Avenging Champion. Next card we're going to look at is Gallant Defender. It's a 7-cost 2/6 with guard, but it also has Prophecy, so that's where it comes in pretty clutch here. +0/+1 for each one of your destroyed runes. Honestly, the plus health is, I don't think, as important. It can make it up to, I guess, a 2/11 with guard for 7 if you get it off your last rune. Obviously, if you're playing an aggro deck and they don't have a silence or a shield breaker or something like that, that can almost just shut them out. But obviously, if you're at the point where you have 5 runes broken, you might be losing anyway. I was liking the idea of a kind of similar to Dark Harvester being a 7-cost 2/4 with guard, gain 4 health. This is an incredibly overcosted defensive card that obviously is amazing to get from a Prophecy. Lurking Mummy, I think, is a 2/5, or I think it's a 2/5. It might also be a 2/6. Let's look up Lurking Mummy. This is probably the closest comparison. Lurking Mummy's not 3-cost. Yeah, it's a 2/6, so they have the same stat line. Lurking Mummy costs 2 less. So I think, honestly, with the summon effect, it would actually make it suitably balanced. Maybe even a little bit underpowered for the Magicka cost. But the +1 health for each rune makes it a pretty good defensive option. Obviously, it doesn't feel great to play from hand. Lurking Mummy doesn't feel great to play from hand. But I thought it was a pretty cool card for something like Guard Spellsword, which I feel like has been closer and closer to being a true thing, but not quite there yet. And obviously has amazing synergy with things like High Hrothgar, but mostly like a amazing Prophecy pull at times against aggro decks, and a not so great card to play from hand. But I thought it was a pretty cool card. Next one I think is one of my favorite cards from this that we're going to review today. Probably my favorite because, again, the love of dragons. And I don't know if I'm saying this right, so please correct me if I'm wrong, but Durnavir, 6 cost 5/5. Whenever you play a shout, draw Durnavir from your discard pile. I would probably make him cost 7 instead of 6. 7 cost 5/5 with an incredibly powerful effect is still pretty good. The most crazy thing is, in these scout decks where Skeletal Dragon's buffing your discard pile, if you use a Soul Tear, you're grabbing whatever creature you choose from your deck that's buffed from Skeletal Dragon, then you're also getting the buffed Durnavir back, so it may even need to cost a little bit more to not be outrageously broken. But I like anything that interacts with the graveyard, and I love dragons, so this card naturally was super appealing to me. And I definitely think there's something that could be here. The balance would be a little bit tricky, because obviously I think something like Soul Tear getting 2 creatures back for 3 is a little bit ridiculous, or Drain Vitality wiping the board and reviving a creature for you, but you still have to play the card, so that makes it slightly more balanced. Like I said, I don't know if it's balanced in its current state, but it's a super interesting card, and I'd love to see something kind of be created in this vein. Next card we're going to look at is Commander Morrow. It's a 7-cost unique legendary in Willpower, with the ability Summon a 2/3 Penitus Oculatus agent in each lane, and Commander Morrow copies the keywords they steal. So I kind of looked at it as a... I know Willpower already has Jarl Balgriff that summons... Where's his value per cost? He's 7 cost. And you get a 3/1 and a 2/2. So that's 5/3. You're getting 8/6 worth of stats for Jarl Balgriff, but also the potential to win the game. So you're getting 8/6 and a win condition spread across 3 creatures. Whereas Morrow, you're getting 6/9 spread across 3 creatures with no win condition. So I think they're kind of similar in that sense. Obviously, the keywords gained by the Penitus Oculatus agents being spread across, this summon ability has the potential to go from somewhat garbage. Let's say your opponent has regular creatures on board, vanilla creatures, or you're just grabbing maybe 1 keyword. It's not that great. But you have the potential, let's say you're playing against Clockwork Scorpion and something else, then you wind up with this guy having Lethal Drain, Guard, Ward, whatever, X amount of keywords, because you're stealing it with 2 Penitus Oculatus agents, and he gets the summation of both of them stealing keywords. It has potential to be pretty good, but even if he steals a ton of keywords, let's say he gets every single keyword across the board, he's still just a 2/3, so it's not completely broken. That's why I thought it was a pretty interesting card. It also synergizes with a lot of yellow token strategies, maybe cards that don't want to play Jarl Balgriff because they don't get as good on board, but maybe even run both and Jarl Balgriff becomes more viable because you have 2 different cards that are spreading you wide. Pause on that. And you can also throw in Tullius. That'll give you, if you're running Token Spellsword, you have 3 different cards that summon 3 bodies, which is pretty darn good, I think. And at the very least, it's an interesting effect. I don't know if it really see any play, but I think it's a pretty cool card. So we're going to go over 2 more today. Next one is going to be Bloodwraith Annihilator. 5 cost, 5/4 Daedra with a slay effect to banish the slain creature. I remember seeing this card as a custom card back before we got Memory Wraith and all the other ways to banish, or I think that's the only way to banish cards in the discard right now. But before the banish mechanic existed, I remembered seeing this card floating around the subreddit. And I still do think that we should have more ways to banish. Memory Wraith is a decent card, super situational card, but still decent card. And I think Bloodwraith Annihilator kind of plays off of the Flavor of Strength, where the banish being on the slay effect. So obviously you're only going to trigger this once, maybe twice with Bloodwraith Annihilator. But I feel like it's a very strong matching characteristic of strength that if you were going to banish, it would be on a slay effect. So it's like this big hulking creature kind of kills you so hard that you just cease to exist even in the discard pile. So it's a pretty simple card, but I thought it was a really cool card, and a card that I think is perfectly balanced in its current state. It could maybe even potentially be a 5/5 to match Memory Wraith, because Memory Wraith is a 5/5 for 5 that banishes the entire discard pile. So if anything, this card's a little bit underpowered, but I think it's a really cool card. Fits kind of the theme of strength. I'd like to see something like it. Final singular card we're going to go over today is the Abusive Overseer. It's a 4-cost 3/4 in willpower. With the summon ability Shackle an enemy creature, it stays shackled as long as Abusive Overseer is in power. So basically, Abusive Overseer kind of acts as a conditional mini arrest. So arrest, you steal a creature, you shackle it, and it kind of stays that way forever. Abusive Overseer, you don't steal the creature, but you do shackle it, and it only stays in effect while it's on the board. So if your opponent has a very large creature that you can't immediately deal with, you can kind of shackle it down until later. Or even a super strong Pilfer creature you don't want going face, shackle it down, and in an ideal world, you play down Abusive Overseer. You have at least a turn or two to figure out how you're going to answer that creature before your opponent can remove the Overseer, and obviously you're back into being in trouble. It's got 3/4 worth of stats, so it's kind of understated for its cost. So I think it makes it pretty balanced with how powerful the effect is of essentially completely shutting down a creature while it's on the board. So it's pretty cool. So those are all the solo cards we're going to go over today. But we are going to take a few minutes to talk about a complete custom expansion that exists on the Custom Legends subreddit, as well as it was posted on the regular Legends subreddit as well. So this custom expansion that exists, like I said, on the Custom Legends subreddit, as well as the regular Legends subreddit, was created by LindsayBear26. Is a full 120 cards, 50 class cards, 50 monocolor, 20 neutral cards, for a total of 120. I'm going to go over a couple of the cards from the set, but honestly I think you should take a look at the whole set on your own time. Like I said, there's 120 cards in there, so there's definitely some stuff to look forward to. But they highlighted a couple of their favorite cards, and I did agree that they're pretty cool cards, so we're going to take a look at them. First one's going to be Caravan Strider, a 3-cost 0/3 with guard. At the end of your turn, draw a card. So at its current power level, it's kind of similar to like a Spider Worker. Spider Worker 2-cost 0/1 that draws a card. Caravan Strider occurs at the end of your turn. So I can maybe see it having a little bit less health, just to make it even easier to remove because of how powerful that effect is. But obviously, you're guaranteed when you play it, you end your turn. Assuming you don't attack and get a prophecy that triggers or something like that. In a ideal play order world, you're going to be able to trigger the effect at least once. So you're getting an 0/3 guard plus 1 card draw for 3, which at a base level is okay. If you can keep it alive for a second turn, obviously this thing gets more and more nuts the more cards it draws. It's a neutral card, so it would be card draw that's available in all colors. I don't know how I necessarily feel about that, because things like willpower tend to naturally struggle with card draw as a whole, or like if you look at like Spell Sword, it usually struggles with card draw as a whole. So I don't know about giving kind of all colors equal gain to this card draw, but again, it's not the greatest card draw, so you have to really need the card draw to do it. I think it's a pretty cool card, relatively balanced, kind of like the was it the Manatide Totem from Hearthstone? Obviously this has guard, that one doesn't, but it's a draw engine that you can work hard to defend to continuously try and refill your hand every turn. Next card we're going to look at is a unique Archer Legendary, Orin Bearclaw, 7-cost 6/5 with Breakthrough. The summon effect, battle an enemy creature. So it's pretty cool. With the breakthrough damage, even if you kind of wind up trading with something, you still have the opportunity to get some breakthrough damage, so it's kind of like a charge in that sense. But in an ideal world, I think you play this thing, you remove something from the board, and then you hope that it lives till next turn so it can attack again. But it's basically kind of plays off the Leaf Lurker vibes of Archer, and I think they mentioned that so if you look at the card description, it says Leaf Lurker on steroids. So I think that's a pretty fitting description for it. It's a pretty cool card, I think. Fits the flavor of Archer pretty well, I believe, as well as it's pretty cool looking Wood Elf card, so very excellent job there. And then the final one that I wanted to look at, was this the one right here? Yes, North Mage. This card looks actually, honestly, a little bit crazy broken, but it kind of highlighted one of the features of the set that I wanted to talk about, was more cards caring about the next color of the card in your draw. So like the ally cards, Nimble Ally, if the top card of your deck is green, gain +1/+1 and lethal. I think there's more room for design space there in terms of not only caring if the card on top of your deck is the same color, so like the allies do, but also caring if it's like the opposite color, or kind of caring about the overall vibe of your deck. So this card is a 5-cost 5/5, summon, shackle a creature, and when you summon a friendly intelligence, agility, or endurance card, give it ward. So again, I think that effect is incredibly broken in terms of summon any card, it gets ward. It's kind of like a way stronger Lion Guard strategist. But I like the idea of a card having conditional effects based on other colors. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a Battle Mage specific card. If we're looking like Battle Mage's Onslaught or something like that, a card that could be, let's say, a strength card that gains +2/+0 if the top card of your deck is strength, or +0/+2 in guard if the top card of your deck is intelligence. And you can even make that a single colored card, but maybe make more sense as a dual color. But I like the idea of a card that kind of procs something either way. You'd probably have to make those cards a little bit underpowered since it's an almost guaranteed trigger unless you're running neutrals in your deck. But I like the idea of kind of expanding on the caring what color is on the top of your deck theme, and kind of taking it into a new design space. So those are the cards I wanted to go over from that set. Like I said, if you have any interest, definitely take a look. There's a full 120 cards, so you have a lot of looking through the set to do if you are interested. But that's going to be it for now, guys. Those are some custom Legends cards that I found interesting. Like I said, if there is any cards that you want me to take a look at that either you made or someone else made, I will glad to take a look at them and kind of put them in the next episode should we do these. I don't know how many or how often I'm going to do this. Maybe every time there's a batch of cards that catches my eye. I don't know, but this was pretty fun to do. I wasn't expecting to have as much of a good time doing this as I did. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to do this. But yeah, that's going to be it for now, guys. As always, thank you all very much for watching. I'm DragonTamerBlayde, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.